Bigfoot Collectors Club presents
Terrfying Tales from Zombie Bigfoot's Cryptid Crypt. I know a ghost story about you.
Welcome to Zombie Bigfoot's Cryptid Crypt, the spooky version of Bigfoot Collectors Club, the podcast where we talk to ghastly guests about their personal paranormal history and share terrifying tales of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McHellion. With me always is
Fritz Johnson
and our supernatural pro-gooer,
Riley Brains.
I really question myself. Yeah.
Yeah, what's a pro-gooer?
Is that supposed to be
It's like a
know.
gooey producer.
You're like a
ectoplasm.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm on board with it.
Or you could have a
works.
side career in the valley. Either way, it works.
Oh, a pro-gooer.
Yeah. Well, October has arrived, and all month long we'll be sharing extra creepy stories of high strangeness here on the regular feed and over on our Patreon, BCC, the other side, patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club. And it's all leading to something very exciting at the end of the month. We have a Clubhouse live stream coming your way on Friday, October 27th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Tickets will be at popclounge.com. You know how this goes. You get to join us in the virtual clubhouse for a couple hours as we do the show live for you with special guests, and you'll be able to have individual meet and greet sessions with me or Riley or Bryce after the show. So check out popclounge.com for that. We're excited. It's been 2 years since we've done a Halloween show, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always the best time of the year. I love it.
Last time we had somebody fall over in their chair and knock over their virtual backdrop, and it was fantastic.
Truly one of the greatest moments, of this show, really.
Good times. All right, before we bring in our ghastly guests, let's check in with the Club Scouts who have been following the show on their favorite podcast app and dropping us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Riley, who is our 5-star Club Scout of the week?
It's Autumn33NS, and the review is titled, "My ADHD Loves This Show." And they go on, "I'm new to the podcast world as of this year. I am an undivided attention type of person, or I literally catch nothing. However, not with this show. The content is interesting, believe it or not, and the guys keep it upbeat and fresh every time. Love you guys, love the show, and we love Bigfoot."
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, that's probably because we're serving it up ADHD style, so it's easier to consume
Yeah,
with ADHD.
we're on the same
so
rhythm,
We're on the
yeah.
same wavelength
We've
there.
designed
Thank
it
for
with
that
you in
5-star.
mind. All right. Why don't we bring in this week's ghastly guest? This person is no stranger to the paranormal. If you've been following the show for a long time, they've been in the clubhouse before. From Den of Geek and Paranormal Caught on Camera, please welcome back Aaron Sagers.
Hey,
Aaron.
What's up, Aaron?
Hey, I need to ask, what's my Halloween name? Do I get to come up with it myself, or
Oh, if you can.
Yeah, what do you got?
Riley, as if I'm some sort of rookie? We're gonna go with Scarin' Slagers.
I love
Oh,
it.
nice.
Perfect.
Good. Well done.
Perfect.
Well done. And you've got your Mothman hat on tonight. You've got your zombie shirt ready to go. I feel like you're feeling the spooky spirit of the season. Oh, a little Frankenstein cup. That's
Franken
fun
cup.
with googly eyes.
With googly eyes.
That looks
Yes.
handcrafted.
Yeah, that's
Did you
custom,
make that?
huh?
I would like to say that I handcrafted a Frankenstein cup, solo cup with googly eyes, but no, I purchased it.
Fair enough. I think you spent too much money. Could have spent a lot. Now I'm relieved to know you didn't make it. They could have spent a little bit more time on that cup, I think. But it's fun.
These are damn fine
great.
googly eyes, sir.
That's
I
true.
like
That's
it.
true. Fair enough. Fair
I'm a
enough.
fan.
Okay, sorry. I'm a bad guy now. Aaron, how are you, man? It's been a minute. It's been almost exactly 100 episodes since you were last on the show. I checked. I think you were back in the 160s. Here we are in the 260s.
That's crazy.
what is the latest update in the corner of your paranormal world? It sounds like you've been up to some fun and potentially scary and potentially dangerous stuff.
Well, yeah. And first off, I'm happy to be back here. I love you guys. I just love keeping track of the show and each of you guys individually. And so, yeah, I guess let's see. Last time we were talking, I was doing Paranormal Caught on camera. Since then, I
love that show.
Thank you. Yes, our buddy
Classic.
Ronnie is on there.
Yeah.
We're in our 6th season, is still airing on there. And
Awesome.
Oh man, I hope it has like Funniest Home Videos legs, for the paranormal. Just it needs to be that it's that mainstay paranormal show that just you can't get enough of,
Bryce, why haven't they called you in to comment on these? You love this show. This is like your thing.
Listen, I'm enjoying being a fan. I don't need to step on any toes yet.
So I will say for that show, and I've been involved with a lot of paranormal shows throughout the years. I love this show because first off, we travel all around the world through the submissions of the audience, and we get to comment on like folklore and stuff from all over the world that kind of breaks beyond the standard ghost, Bigfoot, alien kind of thing. We get into weird stuff from Russia and Florida, and those are both really weird places. But
Truly.
But I'm also a fan of the show, and when I travel with my dog sometimes, and I'll put the dog in the hotel room, and they run that show all the time. So I feel like if I have to step out and go get food or get a drink, or I'm going to be gone for a while, and I put it on Travel Channel, it's a good chance that sooner or later my voice is going to come through on that show. And so my dog Indiana is going to, I'm going to be saying something like, well, the thing about Mothman in West Virginia, but she's going to hear Indy, good girl, and
that's such a humble brag. I'll just leave the TV on, and I should be on there essentially at some point.
Truly cool.
Let's see. I also I did this show called 28 Days Haunted on Netflix, which broke pretty big for us, and we were pretty excited about that. And I think since I was last on with you guys, kind of rebranded the podcast I did, and I relaunched it as Talking Strange. So it's this paranormal pop culture show where we have big time guys like you on it, or we're going to have you back on it. Rainn Wilson, David Dastmalchian, a lot of actors, but also
another Kansas City guy.
Nerds. Yeah, he's great. His Count Crowley comic book is great as well. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to. And then I just got back from a multiple day, like 10 days, 2 weeks in Utah and then Nevada looking for spooky stuff.
I love that.
And where exactly in Utah were you, Aaron?
You're talking ghost towns or?
Well, no, not a good, actually kind of a charming little town called Vernal, but
I've been to Vernal. Yeah, I went there as a kid on a road trip.
I had never heard of it.
I don't know why.
It's like 3 hours outside of Salt Lake City, and I went there, and it's close to Blind Frog Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes. This is Vernal, Utah. You did the PhenomenaCon. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. The PhenomenaCon.
That's great.
It was the coolest part about it is, I mean, you guys are all LA guys. Like, I'm in New York City, and at one point, I was out in this park in the middle of nowhere, and the sky is just littered with stars. And I mean, you're seeing likely satellites, but a lot of just weird shit moving around in the skies, and just the enormity of it all when you're not used to seeing that many stars. It was breathtaking, humbling, and a little bit weird.
Wow. Yeah. That's a rare treat. It's for especially Angelinos, is, for those of us, for those who don't know, we get to see sort of like 10, maybe 5% of what the night sky holds just because of all the light pollution. And isn't there like a, we took my family last year to Santa Fe, and then there's a whole city. They have like a rating system of how dark it gets. I forget the name of the type of stargazing type scale, but Santa Fe was at the very best. And yeah, Utah's a place like that. It's something else when you actually get to see like the Milky Way rift and the band, and you're actually like, holy shit. And you really get to see the vastness of just the cosmos and how many stars.
Is it the Bortle scale? Or are you
sky.
thinking about the Bortle scale, Bryce?
Is that what it is, Michael? The Bortle scale? Okay, cool.
As a way of measuring the quality. brightness of the night sky for a particular location. There are 9 levels to the Bortle scale, with class 9 being the most extreme amount of light pollution. I mean, we got to be close to a 9 here in LA for sure.
What's New York City at? I mean, obviously we have a lot of light pollution, and then what was kind of cool is global suffering aside, during the pandemic lockdown, obviously we were able to see a lot more stars in the sky because there was a lot less traffic. But you could, even recently in Brooklyn, where I'm based, you could see the Starlink moving through the sky, and that was pretty wild. But most of the time, it's just too polluted.
NYC is a 9 on the Bortle scale. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Maybe not the best thing for us to be.
Well, you were in a very low
terrible
Bortle
light
zone.
pollution.
Did you ever feel the inkling to go out and get a pass onto the old legendary Skinwalker Ranch? That place has become so legendary since we've started.
Do
this
we call
podcast.
it? Wait a minute,
really
time out. I thought we weren't calling it. I thought we weren't calling it by that name anymore because we don't want dogmen coming around our homes. Should we call it the Sherman Ranch? Maybe the Sherman Ranch is a better way to call it. I think you can
still call it there as long as you don't. I don't think there's any reported
I thought we
tales.
decided this on the show a while back that we weren't going to call it by that name anymore because it's too scary.
You're worried about invoking Dogman?
Right.
I'm going to stick. I like Skinwalker. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a pejorative word, pejorative phrase, we don't
obviously.
say it. I was, so it's, because of the popularity of the show, that place is so locked down. But with my travels, and I think you guys can relate to this, when we're fortunate to travel and get around a lot. I mean, I just like talking to people about, I don't always open with like, hey, tell me something weird, but you kind of let it percolate for a little bit and people tell you weird stories. So without bringing it up, people were telling me stories about strange happenings out there. I was able to talk to some indigenous peoples. And then even when I moved out to the Nevada side of the trip, I was getting Nevada. They get angry when you say Nevada. Seems very posh. But people were coming at me with like some stories about cryptids, skinwalkers, and a lot of interesting stuff out there. So that's the best part about this job, is like, part of the job is just to sit and have a drink and wait until people tell you a story. And you're like, hey, I'm doing my work here.
What are some of the tales you heard in Nevada that you remember? Like, what were the ones that jumped out at you?
So one of the ones that immediately I'm thinking of is I went to this Stewart Indian school, and it's a tragic story because a lot of these Native American kids were taken away, stripped from their families, forced into these schools where it was essentially cultural genocide. And the school's mission was to kill the Indian in them and force them to conform. So very tragic story. But
there's a whole side of plot line on 1923 about that, which is very terrifying and infuriating.
It's funny because I had just started watching that before, just by happenstance. I think there was a couple episodes on the plane. I started watching that part of the Yellowstone saga, and then went to the Stewart School. So, but there's a light on the other end of the tunnel where people start reclaiming their heritage and pushback, and now it's largely used as a museum. On the way out, I go through the gift shop, and as you do, exit through the gift shop, and I'm talking to this woman. Her name is Dale. I forget her last name, but she was doing some handcrafted artwork using beads. She had written a book about her time in Stewart, I believe, and as we're chatting, she tells me, oh yeah, there's stories of Bigfoot around here. Not because I said, hey, I do this weird job and tell me about Bigfoot. I think I picked up like a piece of jewelry that had like Bigfoot on it. And she was like, oh yeah, there's Bigfoot around. And then she proceeds to tell me about like some of the native peoples that had seen Sasquatch in the area. Of course, they're not really openly talking about a lot of it because a bunch of white dudes like me come through and they say, hey, let me tell your story. And then we appropriate it instead of appreciate it. So I understand the reluctance, but it was still pretty wild, just out of nowhere for her to tell me that. Aside from that, like, I was in Virginia City, Tahoe, Carson City, Reno, covered a lot of ground, and there's a lot of crazy crap all through those spots.
Yeah.
Aaron, you make it look so fun and exciting. What's it like being a professional paranormal guy? I mean, like, this is what you do, you know? Tell us a little bit about the life of someone who lives in the world of the paranormal.
Well, I think it's probably not that dissimilar to you guys because, you know, Michael and Bryce, you do the acting stuff and then you do the spooky stuff. Whereas I've also done like the hosting stuff for like Sci-Fi Network and then doing Comic Cons as a host and whatnot. And then there's the spooky stuff. So it's like just traveling and covering a lot of ground. I think like really what's it like? It's exciting because sure, the travel can get tiring at times, but there's a story everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's some very hyper local legend or lore that is unique to that spot that you get to uncover. And my background as a journalist and then doing all this other stuff, it's just like, I'm just insatiably curious. I almost feel like if I were to fancy myself as a Darren McGavin modern Night Stalker, maybe less seersucker suits and more tiki shirts, I would accept that mission.
Is it the story that drives you? Is that really what it is? Is it collecting and telling these stories?
Yeah, I think so. Because, you know, certainly, even though I never bill myself as a paranormal investigator, I investigate as well, right? But I like to document more than anything else because the experiences I have, and they're like are super weird experiences. Like in Virginia City, there's this place there where something freaking weird that I saw, I can't explain, and it's interesting to me, but I'm not trying to convince the world about it.
Was this your most recent trip?
It was. I went back there on this recent trip, but I had seen something previously there that I'm still on the hunt for. And
where did you see it? I was just there. I love Virginia.
I was going to say I love Virginia City.
And Bryce knows it well too.
Yeah, it's this little. For those who don't know, of course, I was born in Reno, but there's this little city about I think it's maybe like 20 miles outside of Reno, and it's this old cowboy town. It's called Virginia City. They still have the old boardwalks there where the cowboys walked on the planks and have shootouts in the street. There's like a bucket of blood saloon, and there's all it's this mining cemetery town too. Like all this silver was mined in aid of the Civil War, so it's like got all this luxurious past.
Yes.
So can you tell us more? Yeah,
something like $1 trillion of silver was mined in just a couple of years of time there, and you could still go into. True. There's a couple mining tours, but one of the ones you can go into is actually very rugged. It's like, this is literally this very old mine. That, hey, this could collapse on us anytime.
One of my biggest nightmares as a kid was like, like getting too far into a mine and having my lantern burn out and then get lost on the way, on the trying to find the way out. And my dad would always play that old record, Big John, Big Bad John, about that miner that had to save all those other miners. So,
are you going to have to pay for that audio now?
No.
It's like, I think it's fair use.
It's a crazy place, Virginia City. Like, and even driving there from the Tahoe side, you're going through these mountains that look. I can rag on Florida because I'm originally a Florida boy. Flatlands, you know. But driving up those mountains, I'm like, this gets a little intense. It's like the road in The Shining, you know, going up to the Overlook Hotel to me.
Yeah.
But I'm reluctant to say the building. I will tell you guys off because I'm still like picking back the layers on this one. But
great.
A couple times ago when I was there, I was in this building, and it's not one of the famous places. I can tell you it's not the Washoe Club, it's not the Territorial Enterprise, it's not the Silver Queen. Spent time in all those places, stayed at the Silver Queen this last time, spent time in the Washoe Club again this time. All great places, spookiness all around. But I was in this one building, not reputed to be overly haunted. I was, long story short, sitting next to someone about arms like the way that I've known for a long time, that I trust and I know. And there was a lot of weird shadow play, shadow anomaly moving throughout this building. But at one point, I saw what looked like, in my best description, looked like Gollum from Lord of the Rings on all fours, crawling on the floor, face upturned, glowing eyes. And I jumped up. And look, I've done this a lot. I've seen a lot of weird stuff, and I can easily be startled, but not typically scared. And I jumped up, and I'm trying to get the words out of my mouth. Holy shit, there's something crawling towards us. But as I jump up and I start to utter these words, Mally, who is next to me, jumps up at the exact same time and says, holy shit, there's something crawling towards us. We finish each other's sentences.
Whoa.
Independent confirmation. And there were some other people in the room that did not see this thing, but throughout this night had seen other things. The shadow play. There was another time. That was a peak, and I don't know what the hell that was.
Did it just vanish? It didn't obviously make it all the way to you guys.
And this is the tricky thing with this kind of phenomena, right? It's like you blink and you miss it. It's gone. It was in the moment that we jumped up and we're finishing each other's sentences, it either dissipated or whatever. Now, this place is not known. Look, people will typically say, well, is it demonic? Is it the site of occult activity? And who knows? But I don't jump to that thing. I think there's a lot of weird things out there that are not fit within the category of demonic or occult or whatever. I think there's just weird shit on the in between, the other stuff out there. I don't know what it was. I can say from some other things that happened in that night, such as like at one point, this woman that I know comes up the steps and she's just checking in, like, you guys okay? Just checking in, saying hi. And there was this massive shadow that had formed behind her. And to me, it looked like, if you remember the original poster one sheet for Phantom Menace, where it's young Anakin Skywalker and it's the giant shadow of Darth Vader.
I know this very well, Aaron. Of course I know.
I figured you might.
Michael,
It's a reference
that's
to
you.
that here, yeah.
So
it's little Annie casting a shadow that looks like Vader
So-
against the Tatooine wall.
which we could also talk about Ahsoka. But behind this woman, so small, kind of normal, small frame, 5'6" or whatever. Behind her, there was this large shadow form that looked bell-shaped. Into my brain, the way I interpreted the visual reference was sort of like Darth Vader. It was very large. It was kind of billowy. And it felt like there was this, again, I don't want to say evil, but not a nice feeling associated with it. And in my mind, I was like, this thing is going to pull her down these steps, because she was at the top of these steps. And I said to her, I'm like, hey, yeah, everything's good. Come in the room. She's like, well, why? I'm like, oh, no, just, come a little bit closer. She's like, no, I'm just checking in on you guys. I got to go. I'm like, no, come on in and hang out with us. No, why? And I'm just overwhelmed with this feeling that something's about to pull her down the steps. And someone else in the room says, because there's an effing thing behind you that's going to pull you down the steps. Independent confirmation.
God.
So this time when I went back to this location, it was very brief. I didn't have the same amount of time. It was weird, and there was vibes. But I will be going back into Virginia City as actually part of a paranormal event in November, and I'm going back to this place because I'm like a dog with a bone on this thing right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. You need a great photo of that sucker.
I've captured a photo a long time ago of something weird that was not the same thing, but almost feels like it's a cousin, like in the neighborhood. But this thing, I don't know what it was. This little guy on the golem on the floor. I don't know what it was, but I just think
sounds like a Toronto tunnel monster to me. Right, boys?
It does, actually.
Definitely.
Yeah, good reference.
So,
Yeah.
I like that
Toronto
reference.
Tunnel Monster.
Or going back to the mine, kind of like those guys from The Descent, the movie The Descent. And I like,
Yes, terrifying.
but I think it just speaks to this thing that like people traditionally have been caught in this like very strict notion of like what the paranormal is, and it's like, again, ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, and then we started expanding and the paradigm started shifting a little bit, and I feel like people are willing to embrace other things, and I think there's just a lot of stuff that operates in the folds, the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense. If it's a sliding scale, you're not, I mean, to put it in Sith terms, there's like the Sith Lords, and then there's like the Inquisitors, and then, there are the Night Sisters. There's like there are all these different classes of entities that they could be. What was this photo that you took that you had something similar?
That was at St. Augustine, Florida. Actually, before I think I was even doing the paranormal gig, I did my undergrad at a college called Flagler College down there, small little school, and a notoriously haunted lighthouse down there. And I was in the lighthouse, and I captured a picture that almost looks somewhat like a little girl, and yet not. It's very grainy because it was like a long time ago. We're talking about like 2000-ish.
We expect our good ghost photos to be a little grainy. No worries.
Right. Yeah, so all of the photos, your Bigfoot has to be a little bit fuzzy. All of it.
Yeah, you're good.
But it was something that looked like this girl, but not quite. And there was this weird reddish glow to her, and she also had this kind of funky looking head and glowing eyes. And that was something that I didn't know what it was, didn't understand it, didn't intend to take her. I didn't see her with my eyes. It was just what my device picked up. But this was a little bit more, a little bit more freaky, especially since I did see it with my naked eyes and someone else saw it at the same moment.
Two questions. One, is this photo still accessible? Is this something you can send us and maybe we can share on our Instagram? And two, I don't want to freak you out, Aaron, but have you ever asked yourself if these entities, whatever they are, may be following you around and it's not location specific?
I think that's a good question. And I do think there's the potential for things like that to kind of follow you around. But I also think that, look, when you travel enough, kind of literally and figuratively, when you're on an exploration and you're looking for these things, when you start really tuning in, you're going to start perhaps finding weird shit out there. Yeah. And I sleep pretty easy at night. I'm not someone that's freaked out by the potential of what's out there. I'm exhilarated, if anything. And it's also exciting because it expands the entire universe to us. I mean, there might be some scary stuff out there. There might be a whole realm full of Cenobites, right? But it still is interesting to think about that there's all of these folds and in-betweens and dimensions and stuff out there. And what if they just kind of bleed through it? It's even like from the fiction standpoint, I'm of the perspective that artists, writers, these kind of madmen with pens and ink sometimes tap into the weirdness, like a Clive Barker, like a Neil Gaiman, will tap into these stuff without even consciously knowing it. They might be bringing truth to their work.
Man, my first hit of the paranormal was like little ghost girls at the lighthouse, like in books at the school library or at the bookmobile. You'd open up that ghost book and be like, they got a ghost. What the fuck is that? And then the next thing you know, you're renting books on Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, and you've just carved out the next 25 years of your life. Yeah.
How old were you when you did that, Bryce? Like, what was the first hit?
Oh, that was gotta be, probably like third or fourth grade. I was interested. I wanted to see those ghost books in the library. I was like, let me see those things. And then, a couple good pictures.
Walked in with his sunglasses, plopped an apple down on the librarian's desk. I want to see those things.
Let me see those ghost books.
I think I told you guys one of the other times I was on about how I was raised Catholic and going to the Catholic school library as a second grader, asking about spooky stuff. I'm like, what's
for sure.
Yo, librarian, because that's how I talked, I'm sure, when I was in second grade. Yo, librarian, what's up with the witches? And I'm sure she's like, here's Sabrina, the littlest witch from the Golden Book collection, and I'm like, no, the real shit.
Yeah.
Like expecting, even at second grade, expecting her to pull back like a alt shelf, and then like, here's the books bound in human flesh.
Takes you to the locked section.
But sometimes, like, isn't it? Do you ever guys find yourself like talking to people from your past that you still speak with, that you're like, so was I was into that stuff at that point, right? I was the weird little kid at that point, right? Because now it's like, when the going gets weird, the weird goes pro, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't need to ask anybody. I know that I was, and I had a couple people that were right there with me. What about that photo, though? Where's this photo of this lighthouse girl? Do you still have it in your collection?
We can't show it on the Instagram, but I can try to find it and show you guys real quickly. But ask me another question while I'm just like zooming through this real quick.
I'm interested in, like, it's like you kind of keep circling around this idea of this sort of like, it's almost like paranormal multiverse kind of thing, and I'm just sort of wondering what your sort of overarching perspective on. Hold on, now we're pausing to look at this photo that none of you get to see.
Whoa!
Oh God! Whoa!
Yeah,
that's spooky.
Whoa!
Yeah,
stop my question in my tracks.
That's a very shadowy entity with yellow glowy eyes.
Yeah, and then like this weird.
Oh, I don't like that at all. But no.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but strange.
Wow.
But sorry, Riley, go on.
No, I never apologize for a spooky lighthouse ghost girl. Just like I'm curious about your sort of overarching theory of the paranormal, where you're at these days right now, and I kind of like what you've been crafting with this sort of. To me, it sounds like a multiverse kind of idea, but I'm wondering how would you
and these
explain
homegrown folklore, there seems to be something there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it's all connected. That what we call a vampire is an alien by another definition is, it's like these things that just, when you remove the labels and just talk about descriptions, every culture has some version of it. And that makes me think there's some validity to this. And I most certainly think, I actually think right now we're in a space, and, I think post-COVID, we're entering into this neo spiritualism where people are fascinated by what's out there, but it's disassociated from organized religion and separated from a strict, like, heaven, hell, ghost as in like this person that's passed on and continues to linger in spirit form. I think where now this neo spiritualism moves into the territory of like, bring it on. Let's get weird, as in elementals, as in a variety of cryptids, as in interdimensional things, as in the word ghost itself being quite limiting, because is it a human that continues to stick around? Maybe. Is it a time slip? Maybe. Is it simply a footprint or an echo? Maybe. Another dimension entirely? Maybe. So I think like people are kind of willing to go there with the weirdness, and I'm right there with them. I don't know what's up, but I think it's kind of bigger and weirder than we have been kind of labeling it. And and then I think there's an interesting confluence when you then start talking about this stuff, and then you start interacting with people that think similarly, like you guys, like John Tenney, like Mike Ricksecker, like, people that are like Ronnie LeBlanc, who has like all these different ideas. And you're like, okay, we're all freaking weird, but we're kind of being weird together. So maybe that means we're onto something.
That's what I like to think.
So, like, do you think there's an observer reinforced phenomenon kind of thing? Like, the more that people are opening to it, the more that it reveals itself, kind of thing.
I think that's a good question. I think potentially, I think we're looking. I mean, not to get. I know people don't really like the term woo woo, but not to get too like woo woo. I think a lot of people feel like there's some sort of paradigm shift taking place. And you know, I hope it's for the better. I hope that we're kind of going through these growing pains as a people, and there's the last gasp of dinosaurs on one end who just want to keep things the same way, and that's going to be a very angry last gasp. But maybe once that kind of passes, we'll enter into a phase of like curiosity about more of what's out there, and who knows what else will happen. I do think there's also something to be said about, like, I know you guys had like the Newkirks on recently, and I love them, and I think there's something to be said about tulpas, egregores, about thought forms, about us bringing some of this stuff into reality through our own energy and manifestations and all of that. I also think sometimes, like, what if there's little buggers out there moving around on the fringes that are like, I want to present myself in some form. This guy's been thinking a lot about Santa Claus, so I'm going to show up as freaking Santa Claus.
That's kind of what I think. Yeah.
Could be all
kind
of
of
the
feeds
above.
off that the user for some sort of psychic manifestation into the physical realm. Possibly.
The visual reference guide.
Yeah, love it. Aaron, we play a game with all of our guests. We've played it with you in the past, and we're going to do it again, zombie Bigfoot Cryptid Crypt style. I'm going to go down a list of phenomenon. If you're open to it, you're going to say believe it. If you're not open to it, you're going to say bullshit. You have to choose one or another at this moment in time. This is a game we love to call bullshit
or believe it.
All right, Aaron, on your mark, get set, ghosts.
Believe it. Ish. Believe it.
Bigfoot.
Believe it.
UFOs.
I mean, believe it. Asterisks.
Vampires.
Yeah, believe it.
Werewolves.
Believe it.
Witches.
I mean, believe it. It's a
shapeshifter.
It's a belief system. Yeah, believe it.
Chupacabras.
Sure, believe it.
Zombies.
I mean, Haitian or Romero.
Your interpretation of the word.
Of the dealer's choice. Yeah.
Believe it.
Levitation.
Oh, I've seen it. Believe it.
The Mummy's Curse.
I mean, like the Stephen Summers movie, or are we going Karloff?
King Tut, maybe.
I mean, as far as cursed white people invading other people's tombs and stealing shit, yeah, believe that's probably fucking cursed.
Seances.
I do believe people hold seances.
Tarot cards.
Diplomatic.
I do believe tarot cards exist.
Crystal balls.
I've seen those. I believe them.
It's turning into a deposition.
Psychic premonitions.
Oh yeah, believe it.
The power of Ouija boards.
Well, so glad you asked, Michael, because I do sell a tiki Ouija board.
No way.
No plugs
really?
during bullshit or believe it.
I do believe they're a great value and high quality.
I know a few takers.
I do believe we
I'm
need
going to
get
shut
one.
this down right now. You can save those for the end of the show, sir.
I believe, I've actually seen some really impressive stuff with the Ouija board. So yes, believe there's something going on there.
Shadow Man.
Seen them, believe that something is going on.
Haunted objects.
Yeah, believe it.
Demonic possession.
God, you're forcing me to get so academic here. I mean, considering the notion of demonic possession, it goes back.
Simple game. It's a simple game, Aaron.
Yes, believe it.
And finally, haunted houses, the amusement park variety.
Oh, well, I did just go to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, and I do believe that.
Great. I mean, some people don't like them, so there you go. All right. Well,
tell me about this
Aaron.
levitating person you saw.
Yeah, got to go there.
No, it was years ago, but I did see someone that did appear to be levitating. It was during a seance as it happened, and did appear to be levitating. There was also like some footage that I did not film that I thought was pretty compelling of a levitation. I think weird stuff happens all around if we're actually paying attention to it and open to it.
Yeah,
how high are we talking here, levitation-wise? Sorry,
yeah.
Bryce. How high are we talking here? Like a
with
foot?
what I personally witnessed, it only looked like a couple inches. It looked low.
That's all it takes. Listen,
that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah,
I mean,
we've got to explore that, Mike. That's what I was going to say. That's on my list of possible high strangenesses, because there's a few cases of people who have been reported to levitate. I think there's even one from the Bible, and there's a few friars who have reportedly levitated, and there's some good case studies out there.
We're going.
Yeah,
you can't pull. Just from the Bible.
I got to do the research
original
first.
paranormal record.
I know there was enough meat on the bone.
I'm sure about that.
About levitating.
And you know what? If there's not, you'll find some meat anyway.
I'll find some meat anyway. That's right.
Well,
Bryce will find the meat.
Can I give a little bit of like the parenthetical to believe it or bullshit for me?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
It's more like belief is such a strong word because I don't know what I believe. But I know what I'm open to, and I know what I've experienced. But even that isn't necessarily belief. So I'm pretty much open to everything, but I don't know what I believe. And I'm kind of ad hoc bullshit as far as I believe there's stuff that happens, but I also think people are full of shit a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's my parenthetical to it.
It's just that bullshit or open to it doesn't have the same ring to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's
the idea of like, okay, I got to decide here and now. You know what I mean? If you had to just decide on the spot, where would you fall?
Right.
You know, which side of the fence do you fall on?
And I like the game, and I also look. I mean, I'm someone that, you know, who knows? AI might take over the world or whatever tomorrow. So this is the same reason I'm very polite to my smart devices. You know, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm just hedging bets a little bit. So I'll just say,
I mind my please and thank you.
I
when
do
I'm
too
talking
on
to the
my
machine.
my AI generations. I'm like, oh, thank you. That was a really great answer. I appreciate all you're doing for me. Thank you.
Already kissing the ass
the
of the
T800
robot
toe.
who's coming
Yeah.
for you.
of the robot overlords. Yeah. Sometimes,
Yes, of
I
course.
mean, I live alone. Look,
Not
so
like me, more advanced.
Sometimes I just say, hey, Alexa, you're good. And I'll just get a check-in. Just say, hey,
You know,
you're doing a good job over there.
I'll be
pep talk.
watching
Thank
you,
you,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Thank you.
I mean,
All right.
you will be spared.
Well, it's time for this week's story of high strangeness, and I want to remind all our Club Scouts they should follow us on Instagram at Bigfoot Collectors Club for any visual aids that might be up there this week, and on Threads, and check us out at BCC Pod on TikTok. And share your own personal paranormal history and your own stories of high strangeness by writing into us at BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com, and they might be talked about and read on a future L-Files episode. Okay, gentlemen, let's get into it. It's time to venture into the graveyard once again and open zombie Bigfoot's cryptid crypt. It's time for our first terrifying tale of high strangeness, and I'm kicking things off with a bang. I'm not fucking around, so be warned. Get out the holy water and bless your listening device. Be nice to Siri. It's time to talk about the story that inspired one of the scariest movies of all time, The Exorcist. This is the real-life story of The Exorcism of Roland Doe.
Wow.
Now, gentlemen, did you know that The Exorcist was based on a true story?
Yeah, everybody knows that, right? I think.
Well, some people listening at home may not.
It was one of those things that I was like, oh yeah, this is based on something that actually happened, right? But I've never known the actual story.
That opening shot with the fog and the father, and then it's like based on a true story. You're just like, oh, right, this is going to get so good.
Well, it turns out it wasn't a little girl, and there was no pea soup vomit involved. I had always heard that the story had been based on an exorcism that took place in Africa, but it was actually partially in the Washington, D.C. area where the film is based, and then in St. Louis. St. Louis had a big role in this, and it involves a lot of Jesuit priests whose names you don't need to remember, listeners, so don't worry about that. There will be no quiz. But William Peter Blatty, author of The Exorcism, both the book and the screenplay, for which he won an Academy Award, the film that the book was based on, had been partially inspired by a case that he'd heard about while attending Georgetown University. Georgetown was a Catholic and Jesuit school, and one of his professors, Eugene Gallagher, told Blatty about a demonic possession case from the late 1940s involving a 13-year-old boy called Roland Doe. Roland Doe was not the boy's real name. His identity was protected due to him being a minor. In the Catholic documents about the case, he's referred to as Roland Doe, and in the Jesuit documentation, he was referred to as Robbie Manaheim. His true identity wouldn't be revealed until decades later, which we will get to. The nightmare began in January of 1949 in Cottage City, Maryland, not far from Georgetown. Roland Doe was an only child living with his mother and father. In January of 1949, the family was grieving the recent death of Roland's mother's sister, Harriet. Aunt Harriet was a cool lady from St. Louis who was into spiritualism and taught Roland how to communicate with spirits on the other side using a spirit board, or what we commonly refer to these days as an Ouija board. Now, it's a...
That's why I don't fuck with those.
Sorry,
I was late on that, but I was unmiking, but that's why I don't fuck with those.
It's a commonly held theory that Roland's amateur dabbling with the spirit world via his aunt's Ouija board is what ultimately led to his possession. Now, we don't know for sure, but when paranormal activity began happening in the Doe household in the early weeks of 1949, the family thought they were possibly being visited by the ghost of Aunt Harriet. The first sign of an unexpected presence in the house manifested in the form of scratching sounds coming from within the walls and the floors of the house. Roland's father called an exterminator, but there was no evidence of any rodent infestation. The scratching sounds continued and were soon accompanied by the sounds of phantom dripping. Roland's behavior began to change over the following weeks. At night, he became irritable and restless. Most disturbingly, the parents began to witness Roland's bed vibrate and rattle violently. Fearing they were no longer dealing with a friendly family ghost, Roland's parents took him to see a doctor and a psychologist to see if there was anything wrong with the boy physically, but they found no symptoms of diseases like epilepsy or any mental illness. And eventually, the family turned towards their Lutheran minister for help, one Reverend Schultz. Schultz was very interested in the paranormal, and he suggested that it was possible that what they were dealing with could be a poltergeist. Upon observing Roland, however, he witnessed a boy being thrown from chairs and shook by the bed. He could see the floors were scratched by furniture being dragged around the boy's bedroom, and a portrait of Christ hanging on the wall shook whenever Roland was nearby. Schultz quickly realized that the boy was far worse off than he had imagined. He recommended his parents speak to the Catholic Church about possible demonic possession because, to paraphrase Obi-Wan Kenobi, demons are our speciality. The family brought Roland to Father Albert Hughes, who gave them some holy water and some free candles and sent them on their way. On February 24th, scratches began to spontaneously appear on Roland's body. never bring candles to a demon fight.
Everyone knows
Following
that.
the scratches, Roland was hospitalized. Father Hughes, apparently making an abrupt U-turn, was granted permission to perform an exorcism. During the week-long attempt to free Roland, Father Hughes was attacked when the child, who was in restraints, broke free, ripped a spring from the mattress, and sliced him from shoulder to wrist, which sent Father Hughes to the hospital. It was also during this first attempt that words in the form of scratches spontaneously began appearing on the boy's skin. In one instance, the word Lewis formed. Roland's mother, who had already begun considering taking the child away from Maryland, took this as a sign to take him back with her to St. Louis, where Aunt Harriet had once lived. Roland's mother, upon seeing this revelation, asked when they should leave for St. Louis. The word Saturday appeared on Roland's hip.
No way.
When
really?
asked how long they should stay there, the phrase 3.5 weeks burst open across Roland's chest.
then
Mom,
she's like,
stop asking so many questions.
Do you have the cross streets? What are the cross streets?
Fortunately, it says here that,
map.
they spelled out 3.5 with just the numbers. Thankfully, it wasn't
Right.
3 and a half in full
that's
letters.
good, yeah.
But they said that these scratches, you didn't see them like get scratched like the way you would scrawl chalk across the chalkboard. The words would just open up, like the full phrase would just
Trippy.
appear at once. So really wild stuff. While staying with relatives in St. Louis, Roland's behavior became even worse. So the exorcism in Maryland did not work. During the day, he was a normal kid, but at night, whatever condition had a hold of him would take over, and he'd spend the night ranting and raving, flinging himself into temper tantrums, sometimes speaking in an otherworldly voice. His furniture would be thrown spontaneously around the room, and in the mornings he'd awake with very little recollection of what had transpired in the night before. The owner of the home sent for priests of the Jesuit church. She had some family friends, and we don't know exactly which family member this is, but I'm assuming it's another cousin or sister. From March 11th to March 15th, the boy was observed by Fathers Raymond Bishop and William Bowdern, who witnessed the scratching and the violent bed rattling, all seemingly performed beyond Roland's capabilities. So they were all convinced this wasn't something the kid was doing. He wasn't putting on a show, that this was like something that was really happening. They, along with Walter Halloran, were granted permission by the Archbishop of St. Louis to perform the ancient Roman ritual of exorcism on Roland. It was not something commonly performed in the 20th century. These guys got old school on this demon's ass. And according to author Thomas B. Allen, who based his book Possessed, the true story of an exorcism, on excerpts of Father Bishop's diaries,
Father Halloran said the first thing Bowdern did was hit the books. He would have learned something about it while becoming a Jesuit, but there isn't much call for exorcism to the modern-day priest. But Bowdern was a veteran of World War II. He'd been in combat, so he was a combination of a religious man who was very tough.
yeah, we're sicking some soldiers on this demon. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone, by the way, everyone in this story is just dealing with generational trauma and like the trauma of World War II. These are heavy times. The exorcism began on March 16th, 1949, and lasted over a month. During this period, Roland was moved between Alexian Brothers Hospital, his relative's home, and the church college rectory. On March 23rd, the first night in the rectory, things got off to a rocky start when Roland broke Father Halloran's nose. Do not punch a World War II vet in the face, okay? You're not going to like what he does to you in return. The exorcism was a long, arduous, and grueling process. The Jesuit priests witnessed Roland screaming, cursing, and speaking Latin. A large red X was scratched into Roland's chest at one point. Another scratch, a pitchfork-like pattern, formed on his leg and spread all the way down to his ankle. Objects would mysteriously fly through the room. Multiple witnesses all saw these. These were all recorded in the priest's libraries, and their diaries. On April 1st, hoping to ease the process, they converted Roland to Catholicism. On April 2nd, he was given his first Holy Communion. However, the possession still had a hold of the boy and continued for 2 more weeks. On April 17th, Easter Sunday, Roland screamed at the priests that Satan had possession over his body and would never let go. The Jesuit priests covered Roland in holy relics as they fought bitterly to save his soul. At 10:45 p.m., they called upon the Archangel Michael to save the child. And then, on the morning of April 18th, after what was a very long night, Roland seemed to wake from his trance and claimed that he saw a vision of the Archangel Michael casting Satan out of his body. The Jesuits' efforts had finally worked, and Roland had seemingly returned to normal. On April 20th, the Washington Post ran an article about the exorcism written by reporter Bill Brinkley titled, "Priest Frees Mount Rainier Boy Reported Held in Devil's Grip." And that's how the story got out. And one of the earliest people to start leaking this story was Reverend Schultz, the family's Lutheran minister back in Cottage City, Maryland. So this story got out there pretty fast. And I will say, as a sidebar, it's pretty good advertising for the Jesuit Brotherhood that they can take care of the devil. For decades, even through the publication and eventual film production and release of The Exorcist, Roland's true identity remained a secret. It was only last year, in 2022, that Roland's real name became public. Roland Doe was really Ronald Edwin Hunkeler, who died at 86 years of age in 2021. After his exorcism, he had gone on to live a relatively normal life. In fact, he grew up to be a NASA engineer who worked on the Apollo missions and retired from NASA in 2001. So he spent a long time with NASA, which I'm sure will freak out some of the people who are into those dark NASA conspiracy theories.
Right.
According
I'm sure
to an unidentified close source, Roland was always worried that his colleagues at NASA would find out that he was the inspiration for the kid in The Exorcist and carried his story with him his whole life in secret, even vacating the house every Halloween in fear that someone would come out of the dark and reveal his true identity to the world. Hopefully, in death and in heaven, Roland finally found peace. And that is the story of the exorcism of Roland Doe, a.k.a. Ronald Edwin Hunkeler.
I love the idea of him like overplaying his hand of anonymity. He's like, that kid in Exorcist, huh? How fucked up is that kid? Right? That kid, right? Fucking crazy.
Ronald,
Anyways, let's go to the moon.
Ronald,
Let's
why
go
do
to the
you
moon,
keep bringing up The Exorcist? We have 2 men we are trying to land on the moon right now. Stop talking about this movie.
Hate that kid from that movie.
Wait, am I allowed to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I was about to say, what the hell was that? What do you think
dying
about
for
this
your take.
story?
I'm freaking out. Well, so I know this story pretty well. And a couple of things that spring out at me is like, so the Ouija board thing, I must say, like, Ouija boards, they're a spiritualist device and they go back a long time. It was not until really the Exorcist movie that they became the boogeyman of the paranormal.
Right. We talked about that in our Ouija board episode, as a matter of fact.
So I feel like we need to lay off Ouija boards. And I mean, I can also promote my Tiki Ouija board that I sell. No. But what was just kind of mind-blowing, it just kind of pieces fell in at the moment. So NASA conspiracy theories, Exorcist boy that goes on to be a NASA engineer working on the Apollo missions, tie it back to Kubrick and Room 237, that documentary, a movie and a book by Stephen King featuring a character named Dick Halloran, which is the same name as the priest who was performing some of the final exorcism rites on Roland Doe. I don't know.
Aaron, you get the Red String Award of the episode. Well done.
Yes.
Connecting
I'm like
all
Charlie
of these
Day
things.
over
And
here.
that's why
Just connecting the dots.
that's why you're here.
That's why you're here. I mean,
Whoa.
this is so I've never really given much credence to the exorcism stuff. Like I always just felt like these are all kids or people that are dealing with other things that are probably not demons. But I was surprised when hearing this story about like the words appearing and, you know, that some of the stuff was like, and the poltergeist activity, that some of the stuff, and there were multiple witnesses. A lot of the stuff came from diaries that the priests wrote at the time. There's even a guy who was an assistant. He was a driver to Halloran, and he was like, Halloran pulled up to the house. He's like, by the way, we're doing an exorcism tonight, and I need you to come in and hold the boy just in case his shit goes down. And he was like, wait a minute, what? I'm not like, he was a brother in the Society of Jesus in the Jesuit Church, but he was like, he didn't know until they got there that they were going to even be doing an exorcism. So there's obviously, this is a truncated version of the story, but there seems to be a lot there that lends itself to the idea that there was some real paranormal activity happening with this case, unless all of this is just orchestrated as an advertisement for the Catholic Church, which, you know, is possible too. I don't know, but
it was a great recruitment tool. It was a great recruitment tool, but you know, but maybe there's something to it. But the notion of exorcism and demons goes back long before Judeo-Christian beliefs, and you know, we're talking about Babylonian era, when the idea of demons was like more like the mafia, that they're going to take care of you, and they're, you know, not so bad. They're going to help you with your crops and make your baby healthy and everything. But if you piss them off, it's not so good, right? You know, but I'm more taken by the worst like travel website ever, in the form of like skin bursting on that. And like, where should I go for recommendation? Where should I? It's like Hexpedia over here.
Yeah, he also went on to create the Magic 8-Ball just to have a way for demons to communicate with people that wasn't his stomach.
Well, I think we need to point out too, like, it's one thing to, like, you know, over exaggerate in your writings or your journalings about something that happened, but these guys are writing like about supernatural stuff here, you know what I mean? And they're not being coy about it. They're like, bed shook, we were receiving writing across his body, just, you know, stuff that isn't natural, you know? So
I mean, it's like a truly fantastical account. It's like, this is like all of the things,
right,
you know, with furniture's flying around and words are appearing in flesh, and it's just like, it becomes, it's like so much that it's hard to be like, did this really happen?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where it leaves
But I also like the idea of like, they also had to learn up on their like, oh wait, I'm gonna do the old school Roman ritual of exorcism, which had to have, to Aaron's point, had to have pagan roots to that as well. Those rituals had to date long, you know, must go back to the ancient Roman Empire, long before you know, Christianity took hold of Rome. So it's just kind of like wild how they're like, we got to pull out the you know, the big guns for this one, and we don't know really what we're doing. You know, it seems like it took so long to, like, they really didn't know what they were doing.
There's an early treatise about, and I forget who precisely wrote it, but it was a guy basically wrestling with pagan deities, and he wasn't saying that they didn't exist and that the old gods didn't exist, pagan gods didn't exist. Instead, he was saying all those pagan gods, they exist, but they're also demons. And it's one of the earliest writings about exorcisms, and as it was connecting to the Catholic Church, as it was kind of forming what their ideology would be with regards to it. I'll do a shout out, Joseph Laycock, I believe, the religious studies author, wrote a lot of like the book of exorcisms. He kind of referenced this, but so in the early days, they were actually saying, look, all this elder shit is real, but we're wrestling with it in the scope of heaven, hell, Jesus, Satan, and all of that good stuff. And how do we kind of deal with that when we're talking about exorcisms?
It's It's nights like these when I hate that I can see behind me in the chat window, because I'm getting scared that something's gonna pop up over my shoulder right now. I don't like
Pazuzu, and he just wants to give you a hug.
Okay,
hugs from Pazuzu.
No, thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Please tell everyone where they can get your Ouija board and any other projects and or anything else you're working on. Where can people find you?
At last, the shameless plug portion. Primarily, I will say thanks, guys, for having me on. It's always just such a blast chatting with you. Check out my podcast and live stream show, Talking Strange, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We do a lot of chats with actors as well as researchers, authors, and people in the paranormal TV realm. And so that keeps the lights on the daily. I would say check out Paranormal Caught on Camera on Travel Channel, Discovery Plus, and Max, which is not a porn streaming service. It's what HBO Max used to be. And 28 Days Haunted on Netflix. And then, yes, I do sell various merch and spooky stuff at spookynerdshop.com. And then just hit me up on social media at Aaron Sagers if you've checked out this episode, and say hi, because I love connecting with the new folks out there.
Awesome. That's great.
Right.
Well, thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk more strange stuff very soon with you, I'm
Thanks,
sure.
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
I look forward to it. Thank you, guys.
And happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
We want to give a big thanks to Aaron Sagers and a big thanks to you, the listeners, especially our friends who recently joined us on BCC The Other Side. It's time for Patreon shoutouts, which during Zombie Bigfoot's Crypt to Crypt month, we're going to call 10 Freaky Friends.
Ooh.
All right, here we go. Here are our 10 Freaky Friends of the week. Nathan J. Murphy.
Thank you, Nathan.
Max Morshead. I think that's Mother's Head, Max. I'm sorry if I messed that up.
More. You know what? Thanks, Max. Thanks.
Chad Princeton.
Thanks, Chad.
Kevin Lucas.
Thank you, Kevin.
Michelle Spitzer.
Thanks, Michelle.
Nathan Moss. Cosmeteer.
Thank you, Nathan. Welcome.
Stephanie Trammell.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Janelle Headley.
Thanks, Janelle.
Gordon Steinberg.
Thank you, Gordon.
And Michael's favorite name of the week, Daniel Sink.
Thank you, Daniel.
You too could be a future freaky friend when you join patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub to get total access to 3 bonus episodes every month, merch discounts, the BCC Discord, and more. You can also upgrade to the Cosmeteer membership to unlock 3 bonus music tracks exclusive from super producer Riley every month. So check it out. As for me, follow me on Instagram at McMills. We're still on this striking here, so I got nothing else I can really plug. So check that out.
Well, I got something for you. If you've been enjoying Expedition Bigfoot Season 4 Alaska, enjoy more. I know we had a bye week, but we're back October 12th with a brand new Expedition Bigfoot. So tune in only on the Discovery Channel.
Hell yeah. And we are covering all season, the whole season of Season 4 in 2 parts over on BCC The Other Side. So if you're a big fan, come over and check that out.
You are not going to want to miss that. Absolutely. Big fan of Expedition Bigfoot, come over to the Patreon.
I've been binging it today. I think I watched 3 episodes of it. So I was really getting in the zone before the episode.
Yeah.
And it's my favorite season so far.
I love that.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Great.
And Alaska is just such a perfect setting. And just the scenic shots and everything. It's just you guys are in prime form.
And we'll talk about this on the other side, or we have, but the added element of the bears, of just bears. Also, like,
just bears.
You might run into bears that'll eat you. Yeah, bears and wolves is really fun.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
the danger game is really
fan.
upped this season.
Yeah. But
That's
other than that,
Alaska.
I'm Peace Drone on Instagram. And come on over to the other side.
And you're touring, too, so check out tour
I'm on
dates
tour,
with Tommy.
too.
Yeah.
I'm on tour with Tommy. We're
November.
doing West Coast run with the Crane Wives. And most of the shows are selling out. It's really very exciting and touching. I'm excited to go play these shows for you guys.
Awesome.
Go see Riley and Tommy.
All right, well, we're crossing over to the other side to discuss a spooky ghost guarding buried treasure. If we don't see you there, we'll see you back here next Wednesday for an all-new episode of Zombie Bigfoot's Cryptid Crypt. Until then, good night.
And go get regressed.
I yelled at a hawk the other day, trying to prey on my sister.
Bigfoot Collectors Club is executive produced by Michael McMillan, Riley Bray, and Bryce Johnson. Our show is engineered, produced, and scored by Riley Bray. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Sun Eaters. Follow them on Spotify. Want more BCC? For exclusive full-length episodes every month and total access to the other side, check out patreon.com/Bigfoot Collectors Club.